All right, and thanks to you at home for joining us for this hour. Rachel has the night off, and there is some big news on the West Coast tonight in the state of Oregon, something that we've been watching for and something that the Oregon press has been waiting for. And today it finally happened. Governor John Kitzhaber giving in and announcing just hours ago that he will resign from office effective next Wednesday. We've seen plenty of scandals take down plenty of governors before, but have we ever seen one like this? Joining us now is Dr. Jim Moore. He's the director of the Tom McCall Center for Policy Innovation at Pacific University in Oregon. Dr. Moore, thanks for joining us tonight. So let me just start with this. We played that audio file from the governor, the soon-to-be ex-governor, that was released today. And he said today, among other things, that he has been, quote, charged, tried, convicted, and sentenced by the media. This all happened very fast. I think people, especially nationally, are still trying to figure this out. Does the governor have a point there? Is there a chance that we don't fully understand even what he's being accused of?
Yeah, there's absolutely that chance. But it's partly his fault. In fact, a lot of it is his fault. The media for the past 4 months, beginning with Willamette Week and then the Oregonian and other newspapers, have done a really strong job in uncovering things, has found a lot of things that don't look right, but they haven't looked underneath to see if there's an alternative story or if there's an explanation that makes sense underneath. And the governor, during that entire time, during his campaign, and then when he became governor again, has basically refused to give a narrative that makes sense out of any of that. So yes, there's been a rush to judgment. It looks like a media thing. But the thing is, he didn't act on the other side. He didn't say, no, this is what's going on. And so we were left with a deafening silence from his side.
And it's so interesting what you're saying, because Kitzhaber, as we said in that intro, in his 4th term, 2 different stints as the governor of Oregon, this is a guy who's been around the block when you're talking about politics. Can you tell us a little bit about his girlfriend? She's, I think, 20 years younger than him. Obviously, in the middle of this, their relationship, their history together. There was some controversy in the fall campaign last year about she'd been part of some green card for cash scheme about 20 years ago. When did she come into his life, and what effect has she had?
She came into his life in 2002. She was a candidate for a state legislative position, and they met. That's the year that he left the governorship. So he was working with candidates across the state. They met. They've apparently been an item now for 10 years. And during that time, she runs her own business. She's basically an energy and environmental consultant, and she had clients and things like that. But as the governor looked like he was going to run for a 3rd term after 2 terms of someone else, all of a sudden she started getting different contracts, and when she became the First Lady, as he called her, the payment for her contracts went up. And so that's what raised red flags. But what has she done for him? You know, his first 2 terms, he was known as a really reclusive guy. He did not go out and campaign for Democrats who were running for the legislature. He kept to himself. 3rd term comes in 8 years later with Sylvia Hayes at his side. He was gregarious. He was wanting to talk to people. He wanted to work with the media on things. He had big ideas. He was like a whole different person, and it turns out that person is the reason that he has to resign today.
Dr. Jim Moore, the director of the Tom McCall Center for Policy Innovation at Pacific University in Oregon. Appreciate your time tonight.
You're welcome.
From NBC News, this is Today.
Last week, we traveled to the ends of the earth to see how global climate change is affecting our most precious resource, of course, water.
And now a scientific team is testing the health of marine life using shrimp as guinea pigs.
And it's become an internet sensation.
David Skolnick is an associate professor of biology at the Pacific University in Oregon, and Lou Burnett is the director of the Grice Marine Laboratory College of Charleston, and the Hollings Marine Lab also participated in this. They were both responsible for the original experiment. Guys, good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Serious researchers, you're scientists. Did you ever think your work would turn into a YouTube sensation?
We had no idea.
So this is kind of crazy for you.
Yeah.
So why did you put shrimp on a treadmill to begin with?
Well, this was part of a larger research project looking at marine organisms and their health in the marine environment. So as you said, we know the marine environment is changing, and these animals are exposed to lots of environmental fluctuations, and they're exposed to lots of diseases that they have to fight off all the time. And so we needed something to get them active just like they're active in the environment. So we thought maybe if we put that on the treadmill, this would kind of simulate what happens in the environment.
And for people who are worried, you say that they have a lot of stamina. That you go shrimp has gone 5 hours. This doesn't hurt them.
No, so a shrimp had never been on a treadmill, so we put them on there. We thought
That you knew of.
Yeah. We thought they would, pedal along, swim, and walk for a few minutes, and it just hours and hours went by, and eventually we just stopped the experiments because they just don't tire out. So.
From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now! With the Winter Olympics set to open, Russia is facing a storm of controversy over its crackdown on activists, from environmentalists to advocates of gay rights. Some LGBT groups have called for a boycott of the Games. Today, we'll look at a side of the Olympics Games you won't see in the wall-to-wall coverage from Sochi. We'll speak with a number of guests. Samantha Atroci competed in the luge in the 2006 Winter Games in Italy. Jules Boykoff is a former member of the U.S. Olympic soccer team who wrote the book Celebration, Capitalism, and the Real Cost of the Olympics. We'll also speak to...
You wrote an article last year about WikiLeaks and the 2014 Olympics. What did the Stratfor files reveal, to go back to what Samantha was talking about earlier, about corporate sponsorship and these particular Olympics?
Well, the WikiLeaks documents revealed that Stratfor was working for a number of Olympic sponsors, including Coca-Cola.
And explain what Stratfor is.
The global intelligence firm based in Texas that WikiLeaks somehow got the documents from, email conversations that they were having. And it demonstrated that Coke was actually really concerned with activism at the Vancouver Games. In particular, they were asking a number of questions about PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, and trying to figure out in advance what they might do to undercut the Games. So they're definitely concerned with movement building around the Olympics. And just to echo something that we just heard here, movements create space for the athlete activists, and I think that's what Professor Lenski was saying there in a way, is that if you have movements on the ground, that opens up opportunities for athletes to take a courageous stand.
Do you think that the Olympics should have been boycotted, though?
I do not. I think that would have just taken away the opportunity for Olympic athletes who have dedicated their whole lives to that moment, as Samantha described just a moment ago. And I don't think it really would have necessarily accomplished anything. In fact, when scholars look back at the boycotts of the early 1980s, it's pretty resoundingly proved that these things really did nothing to change the political situation on the ground for real people.
Jules Boykoff, you too are an Olympic athlete. You were on the Olympic soccer team. Did you relate to what Samantha Atroci was describing in this very painful, from 11 years old, odyssey she took, sponsored partly by Verizon until Verizon pulled out, and what it meant, ultimately leading to the censorship at the Olympics about what you can say?
Well, I can certainly relate to the strict regime that was imposed on the athletes. To be clear, I played for the U.S. Olympic soccer team from '89 to '91, so I didn't make the final cut for Barcelona '92. So I didn't actually participate like Samantha did in an actual Olympics, but nevertheless did play internationally against the Brazilian Olympic team, the Yugoslavian. Yugoslavia existed then, Czechoslovakia existed then. In fact, we played against the Soviet Union at the time. And you know, one thing that was really striking to me, we played in this French tournament, and we were not getting rooted for. As a naive 19-year-old, I thought, oh, everyone was going to cheer for the United States. And it really put this thought in my mind when I went home, you got to figure some of these things out. And so I did, went home and started to do a political excavation of what might be going on here, where we got the French cold shoulder around the country.
The New York boost to the security industry and policing.
Absolutely. In general, with the Olympics, the security industry and local police make off in great shape. Basically, they treat the Olympics like their own private ATM machine, getting all the kind of military devices that they would never be able to get under normal political times. And that's a trend we've seen throughout numerous Olympics.
Well, we'll see if this discussion happens when we're watching television throughout the Olympics, if it happens on NBC. All of these issues that you have all raised. Would you do